The spring winds blew fiercely, carrying with them the falling cherry blossoms like tears. As the garden faced the raging storm, 3 friends, Leah, Milo, and Penny, stood firm together, not only to protect the flowers, but also to protect their friendship and belief in themselves. But will they be able to overcome this challenge? Or will the garden they love be swept away? Join us on an emotional journey of friendship and strength in the butterfly race. Spring never arrives hastily. It always comes gently, like a warm breeze, drifting through every corner of the forest. The first winds of spring weave through the trees, bringing with them the warmth of the earth and the promise of new life. On the bare branches, the first flowers begin to bloom like small flickering flames in the breeze, celebrating a new beginning. Leah, a small butterfly with delicate wings, sat beneath a cherry blossom tree, her eyes transfixed on the petals gently falling to the ground. She felt the subtle change in the air, the fresh warmth of the earth, inviting her to be part of this magical space. Spring had arrived, but this year it felt different. She could sense that this spring held more significance than any other before it. Something deep within her told her that this year would be special. The gentle spring breeze brushed against Leah's soft white fur as she stretched her wings. She felt the warmth of the sun's first rays upon her, casting a golden glow over the garden. For a moment, everything felt perfectly still. The flowers, the trees, and the wind all seemed to be welcoming her into this season of renewal. But what struck her most was the sense of purpose she felt. This wasn't just another season. It was the beginning of something new. As she looked around the vibrant garden, Leah spotted her 2 closest friends, Milo and Penny. Milo, the golden butterfly with large, shimmering wings, was fluttering gracefully among the blossoms, and Penny, a small, gentle bird with soft blue feathers, was carefully tending to the flowers. Together, they had spent countless hours nurturing this garden, and today it was more beautiful than ever. Milo. Leah called out her voice, full of warmth and affection. Penny. The garden looks even more beautiful this year, don't you think? Milo looked up, his bright eyes twinkling with excitement. It sure does, Leah. But you know what? I think this year, it's more than just the beauty of the flowers. It's about how we've helped it grow together. Penny, perched on a nearby branch, turned her head thoughtfully. Exactly, Milo. Spring isn't just about the flowers blooming. It's about what we've learned and how we've worked together to nurture this place. We've all put our hearts into this garden. Leah smiled softly, the warmth of their words filling her with gratitude. This garden has always been special to me, but now it feels like a part of me. It's not just about the flowers, it's about the love and care we've shared. This year, I want us to do more than just watch it grow. I want us to make sure it thrives. The three of them stood in the heart of the garden, surrounded by the blossoms they had nurtured, knowing that together they could make a difference. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, they decided to spend the day working together, reinforcing the beauty of the garden and protecting the flowers from the unpredictable winds that sometimes swept through. Let's make sure the winds don't carry away all our hard work, Milo said, his wings fluttering as he hovered near a branch. We need to create something to protect the flowers from those strong gusts. Penny nodded in agreement, her wings flapping gently in the breeze. We can build something strong together, something that will stand against any storm. Leah looked around at the garden, feeling a deep sense of purpose. We've faced challenges before, but we've always overcome them. This year, we'll do it again, together. As the days passed, spring in the garden became even more vibrant. The trees were heavy with blossoms, and the gentle wind danced through the air, scattering the delicate petals like confetti. Leah, Milo, and Penny had worked tirelessly to maintain the garden, but the winds of the season were unpredictable. They knew that despite their hard work, there would always be challenges, forces beyond their control, like the gusts that sometimes came rushing through the garden. One afternoon, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Milo had an idea. He fluttered excitedly toward Leah and Penny, his wings shimmering in the soft light. Hey, what if we have a race this year? Milo suggested, his voice full of enthusiasm. A race to see who can fly through the most flowers in the shortest amount of time. Leah, though a little surprised, couldn't help but smile at Milo's excitement. He had always been the more adventurous of the three, the one who found excitement in challenges and fun in the simplest of things. But there was something about the way he said it that made her think it could be more than just a game. I don't know, Leah replied, her voice thoughtful. We've been working so hard on protecting the garden, but I guess a little fun wouldn't hurt. What do you think, Penny? Penny, who had been quietly observing the others from her perch on a nearby branch, fluttered down to join them. I think it sounds like a good idea, she said softly, her voice calm, yet filled with a sense of adventure. But we'll have to make sure it's not just about racing. We need to remember that the garden is our home, and every flower we pass by is something we've cared for together. Leah nodded, agreeing with Penny's thoughtful words. You're right, Penny. This race isn't just about speed. It's about celebrating everything we've worked for." So the three friends agreed to the race. The challenge was set. Each of them would fly through the garden, weaving between the trees and the flowers, with the goal of reaching the other side the fastest. The winner would be the one who could navigate the garden's beautiful maze of blossoms with the most grace and care. The race began at dawn the next day, as the first rays of sunlight kissed the petals of the flowers. Leah, Milo, and Penny stood at the starting point, their eyes focused and ready. The air was fresh and cool, and the wind was calm, perfect for flying. They each took a moment to look around, taking in the garden that they had all worked so hard to protect. The flowers seemed to glow in the early light, their petals glistening with dew, as if they too were excited for the challenge ahead. "We'll start when the sun fully touches the top of that tree," said Milo, pointing to the tallest tree in the garden, its branches stretching high into the sky. The three of them lined up, wings fluttering, hearts racing with excitement. The garden, usually a peaceful place, now felt like a race course, each flower a hurdle to be overcome. They waited poised at the starting line, ready for whatever lay ahead. And then, as the sun crept over the top of the tree, the race began. Leah, with her graceful wings, soared into the air. First her heart light, and her body moving like the wind. She felt the cool breeze against her fur as she weaved between the flowers, each movement measured and precise. She didn't rush. Her goal wasn't to be the fastest, but to fly with grace and care, enjoying the beauty of the garden as she passed through it. Behind her, Milo sped through the air like a flash, his large wings beating powerfully, cutting through the wind. His eyes were set on the finish line, and his competitive spirit pushed him to fly faster with every beat of his wings. He wasn't concerned about the flowers, he just wanted to win. But deep down, even as he sped through the garden, he knew there was something special about the way they all cared for this place. The speed was exciting, but he felt a connection to the flowers and trees around him that he hadn't expected. Penny, the calmest of the three, took a more methodical approach. She fluttered gently through the air, letting the wind guide her. Her small wings flapped with delicate precision as she flew past each flower, taking in every detail of the garden as she moved. Penny wasn't in it for the win. She was enjoying the journey, savoring every moment. The race was more than just a competition. As the three of them flew through the garden, they were reminded of what truly mattered: the beauty of the garden, the love they had put into it, and the bond they shared. As they neared the finish line, something unexpected happened. A sudden gust of wind swept through the garden, stronger than any of them had anticipated. The flowers, delicate as they were swaying, and some petals were ripped away, carried off by the breeze. Leah, who had been flying ahead, felt the wind push against her, threatening to disrupt her graceful flight. She fought against it, her wings fluttering harder, but she knew the wind was stronger than she could fight. Behind her, Milo's wings began to strain the powerful gusts, making it harder for him to maintain his speed. His determination never wavered, but he too struggled against the wind, realizing how much harder it was to push through without the support of his friends. Penny, ever calm, was the first to notice the danger. The wind is too strong. She called out, her wings struggling against the gusts. We need to stop. The three of them landed together just before the wind became too intense. They huddled under a tree, watching as the petals continued to scatter in the breeze. The wind continued to howl through the garden, its force knocking petals from the flowers, scattering them like fragile confetti in the air. Leah, Milo, and Penny huddled together beneath the shelter of the largest tree in the garden, the same tree they had all admired for years. Its broad branches shielded them from the worst of the gusts, but they could still hear the wind's powerful roar in the distance. Leah, her wings fluttering slightly in the breeze, glanced over at her friends. We've been through storms before, but this one feels different, she said, her voice tinged with worry. I thought we were prepared for everything but this. It's more than I imagined. Milo, who had always been the most energetic and optimistic among them, looked up at the swirling winds. His eyes narrowed in thought. It's strong, that's for sure, but we've faced many challenges together. We've always managed to pull through, haven't we? His wings twitched in agitation, but his voice was steady. Penny, ever the calm and collected, one gazed up at the storm with a serene expression. The wind is powerful, but it's part of nature. We can't control it, but we can work with it. We've come this far by working together, and that's what we'll continue to do. The three friends sat there for a moment, absorbing the gravity of their situation. They had built the garden together, cared for it together, and now they faced the storm together. It wasn't just about protecting the flowers. It was about protecting the bond they had formed, the trust and love they had for one another, and the garden that symbolized all of that. Leah stood up, shaking off the uncertainty that had clouded her mind. She looked over at her friends, feeling a surge of determination. You're right. We can't control the storm, but we can control how we respond. Let's protect what we've worked so hard for. Milo's eyes sparkled with agreement. Exactly. Let's make sure we shield the flowers and make the garden stronger than before. We won't let it fall apart. Penny fluttered her wings, her voice filled with quiet confidence. We're not just protecting the garden. We're protecting each other. And that's the most important thing. With renewed resolve, the three of them sprang into action. They spread out across the garden, working in unison to fortify their defenses. Penny fluttered to the tallest branches, securing vines to the tree trunks to create a barrier. Milo darted between the flowers, gathering leaves and branches to reinforce the makeshift wall. Leah moved gracefully through the garden, checking each flower, ensuring that no blossom was left vulnerable to the wind's fury. As they worked, the storm raged on. The wind whipped through the garden, making it harder to hear each other. But their efforts were tireless. They had faced challenges before, smaller storms, smaller setbacks, but this one felt different. The garden felt like it was teetering on the edge, vulnerable to nature's unpredictable forces. But through it all, they pressed on. Hours passed, and the storm showed no sign of letting up. The once calm garden was now a battleground, the wind cutting through the air like a blade. Despite the chaos, Leah, Milo, and Penny remained focused. They communicated with only glances and gestures, understanding each other without words. It was a dance, a rhythm of movement, as if they were in perfect harmony with each other and with nature itself. Finally, as the sun began to set and the wind started to subside, the storm's intensity weakened. The three friends stood side by side, looking over the garden they had worked so hard to protect. The flowers, though battered, still stood tall, their petals glowing in the fading light. The protective barrier they had built together had held strong, and the garden had survived. Leah took a deep breath, her heart full of gratitude and pride. "We did it," she whispered. "We protected the garden, and we protected each other." Milo grinned, his eyes shining with relief. "We did more than that. We proved that together we can face anything. No storm, no matter how fierce, can break the bonds we've built." Penny, her wings gently fluttering in the breeze, nodded. "And this garden isn't just a place. It's a symbol of our friendship, our love, and our resilience. We've shown that even in the strongest winds, there's always a way to keep moving forward." The three of them stood there watching as the last of the storm clouds drifted away, leaving behind a sky full of stars. The garden, though still fragile, had emerged from the storm stronger than ever. And so had they. As the night settled, in the gentle sounds of the garden, once disrupted by the storm, now returned soft and soothing. The wind had calmed, and the world felt peaceful again. The flowers swayed gently in the breeze, as if thanking the three friends for their hard work and unwavering commitment. Leah, Milo, and Penny sat together under the stars, their hearts full. They had faced the storm, and they had come out the other side stronger together. And in that moment, they knew that no matter what challenges the future might bring, they would always have each other. They had learned that the true strength of a bond isn't in how you weather the storm, but in how you come together to face it. The storm had passed, but the garden still bore its marks. Some of the cherry blossoms had been swept away by the wind, but most of them stood strong, resilient. The branches were bent, the leaves torn, but beneath those signs of wear, there was still a powerful vitality, much like the three friends, Leah, Milo, and Penny, who had made this garden stronger than ever. The three friends stood beneath the large, old tree, looking out at the garden they had worked so hard to protect. Although the challenges seemed never-ending, they all knew one thing. Every storm, no matter how fierce, brought with it an opportunity to learn, grow, and strengthen their bond. Leah was the first to speak, her voice gentle but full of emotion. This garden, even if the wind blew away so much of it, it could never take away the love we've poured into it. It's the same with our friendship. No matter how many difficulties we face, we will always stand strong together. Milo nodded a soft smile, spreading across his face. Exactly, Leah. This storm has taught us something important. It's not about protecting the outside, but about the strength within. We can overcome any wind as long as we're together. Penny, her wings fluttering gently in the spring breeze, added with quiet confidence. We're not just protecting the garden. We're protecting each other, and that's what matters most. The three friends sat in silence for a moment, taking in the peacefulness of the garden. The flowers, though battered by the storm, were beginning to bloom again, their colors softer, but still beautiful. Spring had passed, but this garden, and they themselves, had learned that life doesn't just come from the beautiful and perfect, but from the ability to overcome hardship and to regenerate after every challenge. Look at these flowers, Leah said softly, her eyes reflecting the gentleness of the moment. We did it. We helped this garden survive the storm. And now it will grow stronger than before. Milo lightly patted Leah's arm, a proud smile on his face. And it will keep growing. Every spring, we learn something new, and this garden will always be a testament to our friendship. Penny flew up and circled the garden, her wings fluttering gently in the breeze. This garden isn't just a place we've protected, it's where we've grown together. And every time the wind blows through, we'll remember that nothing can break our bond. The three of them sat together, watching the garden. And in their hearts, there was a peacefulness they had never felt before. They understood that no matter what challenges came their way, no matter how strong the storm, friendship, resilience, and love would always help them endure. As days turned into weeks, the garden began to heal, and with it, the three friends. The flowers, though not as pristine as before, were still vibrant, standing tall in the gentle breeze. The once battered branches had grown stronger, and new buds began to sprout, signaling that the garden, much like the bond between Leah, Milo, and Penny, was finding its way back to life. The trio continued to care for the garden with the same dedication they had always shown. They watered the flowers, tended to the trees, and reinforced the protective barrier that had shielded the garden from the storm. But more than that, they continued to nurture their friendship, knowing that the strength of their bond was just as important as the strength of the garden itself. One afternoon, as they worked together, Leah paused for a moment, looking around at the blooming flowers. "Do you feel it?" she asked, her voice soft, almost reverent. "The garden is different now. It feels more alive than before." Milo, who was hopping between the branches, looked down at Leah, his eyes full of understanding. "I know exactly what you mean. The storm, while harsh, gave the garden something it didn't have before, a sense of strength. It's like we've all learned something from it." Penny, who had been quietly arranging the petals that had fallen on the ground, fluttered her wings and nodded. "The garden has always been beautiful, but now it feels like it's carrying a new kind of energy. It's as if it's saying, 'I'm here to stay.'" Leah smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace settle in her heart. "And we're here to stay too, together." That evening, the three friends gathered under the tree where they had spent countless hours together. The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a soft golden glow that bathed the garden. They sat in a comfortable silence, each of them reflecting on the journey. They had taken, the lessons they had learned, and the strength they had gained. "Do you remember when we first started working on the garden?" Leah asked, her eyes soft with nostalgia. It seemed like such a small thing, just a few flowers and trees. But now, look at it. Look at everything we've created together. Milo chuckled, shaking his head. "I remember. I thought we'd just be growing a few flowers and calling it a day. But now, it's so much more. It's a part of us, just like our friendship." Penny smiled, her wings fluttering gently as she watched the last rays of sunlight fade away. The garden is more than just flowers and trees. It's a place where we've learned, grown, and supported each other. It's where we discovered that no storm, no matter how fierce, can tear us apart. The three of them sat there side by side, feeling the bond between them grow stronger with each passing moment. The garden was no longer just a project or a place to visit. It was a living testament to their love their resilience, and their unwavering support for each other. As the stars began to twinkle in the sky above Milo, and Penny knew that no matter what the future held, they would always have each other, and they would always have the garden. Together, they had weathered the storm, and together, they would continue to grow and thrive. The days grew warmer as the seasons shifted, and the garden, now thriving and vibrant, reflected the strength and care of the three friends. Milo, and Penny had learned so much from their shared journey about the garden, about each other, and most importantly, about themselves. The storm had come and gone, but its lessons lingered, shaping the path ahead. As the flowers continued to bloom, the trio knew that their work wasn't finished. The garden required their care, but so did their friendship. Every day they gathered together to tend to the plants, reinforcing their bond with each task. Every leaf they trimmed, every flower they watered, was an act of love, an act of devotion to something bigger than themselves. One morning, as they worked together, Milo paused and looked around at the garden. The colors of the flowers were richer now, and the trees stood tall, their branches full of life. He turned to Leah and Penny, a thoughtful expression on his face. "This place," Milo began, his voice soft. "It's more than just a garden, isn't it? It's a part of us." Leah, who was carefully tending to a cluster of daisies, looked up and nodded. "It is. It's where we've created something beautiful together. And every time we come back here, we add a little more to it, not just with our hands, but with our hearts." Penny, who had been perched on a branch above, fluttered down to join them. "I think what makes it so special is that we've learned to appreciate the little things, the flowers, the leaves, the quiet moments. It's those moments that have helped us grow stronger." The three of them sat on the soft grass beneath the trees, feeling the weight of their journey and the lightness that came with it. They had been through so much, but they had done it together. They had faced the storm, nurtured the garden, and in doing so, had nurtured their own hearts and souls. "You know," Leah said, her voice reflecting the peace she felt, "I used to think that the garden was just about the flowers and the trees. But now I see it's about something much deeper. It's about what we've built together. It's a reflection of who we are and what we're capable of." Milo smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. "And what we've built is beautiful, just like our friendship." Penny nodded her wings, fluttering gently in the breeze. "We've shown that with love, patience, and care, we can create something lasting, something strong. And that's what makes the garden and our friendship so special." As the sun began to set, casting a golden light over the garden, the three friends looked out at the flowers, their petals glowing in the soft light. The breeze carried the sweet scent of the blooms, and for a moment, everything was perfect. The storm was a distant memory, now replaced by the beauty of what they had created together. But they knew that life was full of changes and challenges. The garden would face new seasons, new storms, and new growth. And so would they. But as long as they had each other, they were ready for whatever the future held. The stars began to appear in the sky, their light twinkling like tiny gems scattered across the vast canvas of the night. Leah, Milo, and Penny stood together, their hearts full, their bond stronger than ever. This garden will always be a part of us, Leah said softly, and so will our friendship. No matter what comes next, we'll face it together. Milo nodded, his voice filled with certainty. Together, we can weather any storm. Together, we can create something beautiful, no matter how difficult the journey. Penny smiled, her wings fluttering gently as she gazed at the sky. And we will, because we have each other. As the night settled in, the three friends sat quietly in the garden, surrounded by the blossoms they had nurtured and protected. In the stillness, they felt a deep sense of contentment. They had done more than just protect the garden. They had created a legacy of love, resilience, and hope. And together, they knew they could face anything that came their way. And so the garden flourished, not just because of the care they gave it, but because of the bond that held them together. Through every storm, every challenge, Leah, Milo, and Penny proved that true strength lies in love, friendship, and the willingness to stand together, no matter what comes their way. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you've enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Until next time, remember, no matter how fierce the storm together, we can weather anything.